"I'm sorry, sir, but without proper identification, there's nothing more I can do," the bank clerk said coldly, not even lifting her eyes from the screen. Her voice was flat, robotic, like a recording. Colonel Henry J. Collins, 83, glanced down at the worn stack of documents in his trembling hands. Everything he had: an old military ID, a notarized copy of a lost state ID from his hospital transfer. He hadn't come to beg. He came to withdraw from a private fund money set aside for a ceremony honoring his fallen brothers in arms. "Could you please check again? The account is in my name, with biometric verification." The clerk frowned. "No insurance card, no current photo ID, no authorized power of attorney. I can't verify your identity. Please step aside and let the next customer through." No one helped. The people in line behind him looked on with judgmental eyes, an old man shaking slightly, wearing a faded coat and scuffed shoes. A middle-aged man muttered, "Probably just another crank trying to scam the bank." Henry stood still. The automatic door let in a cold draft that rustled his coat. His hand tightened, not from humiliation, but from the weight of being forgotten. No one saw who he truly was anymore. The old man slowly walked to the edge of the lobby, sitting on a hard bench meant for waiting customers. A child pointed at him, whispering something to his mother, who gently pulled the child away. To them, he looked like a confused old man, not the man who once crawled through jungle mud under gunfire to save others. From his inner pocket, Henry pulled out a faded photograph. It showed a younger version of himself, standing with his unit, dirt-smudged and smiling after a successful rescue operation. Behind them, a tattered American flag barely held onto its pole. Henry touched the image gently, tracing the edges. The sounds of the bank carried on around him, clicking keyboards, automated voices, indifferent footsteps. None of them knew, none of them remembered. But Henry did, and that had to be enough. Still, a small voice inside him whispered, "Not like this. Not today." The old man glanced back at the clerk, who was now joking with a colleague as she waved another customer forward. A younger man in a business suit stepped confidently to the counter, flashing a platinum card. Henry looked back at the photo in his hand. "They gave me a medal," he murmured, "but not a name that matters here." He folded the photo carefully, slipped it back into his coat, and closed his eyes for a moment longer. "Please, miss." The old man tried once more, his voice a little thinner now, but still steady. "This isn't just a withdrawal. It's a promise I made. To my men, to those we left behind." The clerk didn't even look up this time. "Sir, I've explained everything already. There's a line behind you." He opened his coat and took out a small metal case. With reverence, he placed it on the counter and flipped it open. Inside sat a Medal of Honor, weathered, but gleaming under the fluorescent lights. A hush passed through the nearest few feet of the bank. For a heartbeat, even the clacking of keyboards slowed. Then the clerk said flatly, "That doesn't substitute for valid ID, sir." A man further back in the line snorted, "Bet that thing's from a pawn shop." The old man didn't react. His hands rested lightly beside the medal. "I was 19 when I earned that," he said softly. "Not because I was brave, because I was scared, and I couldn't let my brothers die alone." No one answered. The old man slowly closed the case, picked it up, and turned to find a seat again. But this time, something caught his eye. Mounted on the wall near the customer service desk was a framed photograph. A younger bank director stood between a row of smiling scholarship recipients underneath the image awarded by the Medal Honor Fund. The old man blinked, his jaw set. From his wallet, he pulled a folded black and white photo. He looked between the two images, something long dormant flickering in his eyes. Still unseen, still unwelcome, but no longer unsure. "Please, miss." The old man tried once more, his voice a little thinner now, but still steady. "This isn't just a withdrawal. It's a promise I made. To my men, to those we left behind." The clerk didn't even look up this time. "Sir, I've explained everything already. There's a line behind you." He opened his coat and took out a small metal case. With reverence, he placed it on the counter and flipped it open. Inside sat a Medal of Honor, weathered, but gleaming under the fluorescent lights. A hush passed through the nearest few feet of the bank. For a heartbeat, even the clacking of keyboards slowed. Then the clerk said, flatly, "That doesn't substitute for valid ID, sir." A man further back in the line snorted, "Bet that thing's from a pawn shop." The old man didn't react. His hands rested lightly beside the medal. "I was 19 when I earned that," he said softly. "Not because I was brave, because I was scared, and I couldn't let my brothers die alone. No one answered. The old man slowly closed the case, picked it up, and turned to find a seat again. But this time, something caught his eye. Mounted on the wall near the customer service desk was a framed photograph. A younger bank director stood between a row of smiling scholarship recipients underneath the image, awarded by the Medal Honor Fund. The old man blinked, his jaw set. From his wallet, he pulled a folded black and white photo. He looked between the two images, something long dormant flickering in his eyes. Still unseen, still unwelcome, but no longer unsure. The old man sat back down, the medal still in his hand, its weight pressing heavier now, not from the medal, but from the silence around him. The old man glanced around. Not a single employee acknowledged him. A security guard leaned against the far wall, yawning. The old man thought of the names etched on the memorial wall in his garage, the names of men who never came back. Men who once called him Sir. What would they say, seeing him like this now? The old man had spent decades rebuilding a life, quietly funding causes, scholarships, support networks. And now, he couldn't even move a few $1,000s because a machine said no. His jaw tightened. I didn't do it for a thank you, he whispered, but I damn well didn't do it to be erased. The old man stared down at the medal in his palm. Its surface reflected the harsh bank lights, but in his mind, he saw jungle leaves dripping rain, the flicker of muzzle flashes in the night. The old man remembered the weight of a wounded comrade across his shoulders, the desperate cries for help, and the silence that followed when those cries went unanswered. The old man had lived a long time carrying ghosts. The old man didn't expect applause, but neither did he expect dismissal. Another customer stepped forward, brushing past him without so much as a glance. The teller greeted them with a chipper, "Good afternoon, sir," a tone that had never touched her voice when speaking to him. The old man turned back toward the counter. The old man didn't step closer, just stood where he was, watching Mini with a one for an honest and where Contwin. A long moment passed. Then he reached into his coat one last time and pulled out a folded envelope yellowed at the edges, stamped with an old military seal. The old man placed it on the far end of the counter, just within the clerk's line of sight. Inside it were letters, commendations from generals, photos from Arlington, and one faded document, a signed directive approving the establishment of the Medal Honor Fund. The old man didn't say a word. The old man just left it there, turned, and sat back down. The old man sat still, staring at the photograph on the wall. The frame was spotless, professionally mounted. It showed a younger version of the current bank director standing proudly among a line of fresh-faced scholarship recipients. The caption read, "Presented by the Medal Honor Fund in honor of those who served." For a moment, the old man's eyes didn't blink. A tremor touched his lip. He reached into his wallet again, pulling out a different photo, faded, worn, edges curled from time, black and white. A younger him, arm around a group of muddy soldiers, all grinning despite the blood and smoke. His hand hovered over the image like a man touching a wound that never closed. He placed the old photo on his knee and stared between it and the framed one across the room. Recognition bloomed, slow but sharp. That young man beside the bank director, he remembered him. Not his name, but the eyes, the way he looked up at the flag, the way he had shaken Henry's hand decades ago, with both hands and a thank you too big for words. The old man swallowed hard. The silence in the bank seemed louder now. For the first time, he didn't feel invisible. Not to himself. He folded the black and white photo carefully, tucking it back into his coat pocket, and straightened his spine. A small fire lit behind his eyes, not anger, but the resolve of a man who had once led men through fire. A fight was coming, not with bullets, but with truth. And he would not walk out of this bank unseen. It had been decades, but the memory lived just beneath his skin. The old man could still smell the acrid smoke from charred brush, hear the pop of rifle fire echoing off canyon walls. The jungle had been thick and wet, the kind of suffocating heat that clung to your lungs and made every breath feel like swallowing steam. They were pinned as unit, and another caught in a crossfire along the ravine. Radios jammed, evac delayed. 2 squads surrounded, low on ammo. And a boy barely 20 curled behind a supply crate, trembling, his rifle untouched. The old man, then a colonel in boots soaked with blood and rain, knelt beside the boy. "What's your name, soldier?" "Walker, sir. Private Alan Walker." "You see that ridge," the old man said, pointing through the haze. That's our only way out. We hold that line or no one gets home. Walker shook his head, tears in his eyes. I can't. You can, the old man interrupted. Calm but sharp. You stand and they'll follow. You fall and they're gone. So what's it gonna be? Private. Something shifted in the boy's face. He looked at the colonel, not the medals, not the rank, but the steadiness, the unshakable will. He picked up his rifle. They moved it Peter Monte watched onto Bernardone, inch by inch, flank by flank. The old man led from the front, dragging the wounded, barking orders, taking bullets meant for others. By dusk, the ridge was theirs. Smoke and blood mixed in the air. But they were alive. And that terrified boy with the shaking hands, he stood the whole way. He never left that line. Private Alan Walker had earned his place that day. Just like the old man never forgot who helped him find it. Later, when the medics arrived and the wounded were airlifted out, the old man had sat beside Walker, handing him a canteen. The boy was still shaking. Blood streaked across his cheek, not his own. He had held the line. You did well, son, the old man had said. You did more than survive. You led or want some. Walker had blinked back tears and nodded, unable to speak. In that moment, something passed between them, not rank, not orders, just legacy. The kind that would burn itself into memory and shape a life. The jungle faded, but the weight of that day never did. The glass doors whooshed open again. A gust of chilled autumn air swept into the lobby, turning a few heads. The general had been checking messages on his phone when the car slowed, caught in midday traffic. Out the window, a flash of color caught his eye, a familiar flag above a quiet bank facade. He paused, tilted his head. Something about the place stirred a thought, hard to place. A moment later, without fully knowing why, he tapped the glass and said, "Here's fine. I'll go in myself." And so, with his coat still buttoned from the outside chill and his cap tucked neatly under one arm, the general stepped through the doors, unaware that fate had just drawn a perfect circle. Alan Walker stepped inside, tall, composed, still in full military dress. He wasn't alone. Flanking him were three officers, younger, alert, their posture betraying training and respect. None of them were expecting anything more than a quick transaction, just a stop before a formal event uptown. Walker scanned the room out of habit, the way soldiers do. His gaze landed on the old man. Time slowed. For a moment, he didn't recognize him, just an elderly figure slouched quietly by the wall, coat too large, hands folded, eyes low. Then something clicked. The way the man sat, the line of his shoulders, the square jaw despite age, the quiet command of his presence. Walker's breath caught in his chest. His hand instinctively touched the row of medals on his chest, tracing the one at the end. The one he'd earned under fire, the one that bore meaning only because of one man. He took a step forward, eyes locked. The younger officers paused, confused. General One asked. Walker didn't answer. His lips parted, but no words came. His boots echoed as he crossed the lobby, closing the space between past and present. The old man looked up. Recognition flickered in both sets of eyes. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by fluorescent lights and marble floors, the war came back not with fear, but with honor. Alan Walker stood still, staring at the man who had once saved his life. The weight of memory fell upon him like a salute. Walker didn't wait. He broke into a purposeful stride, boots clicking hard against the floor. His voice rang out, not in anger, but in reverence, in disbelief that this moment was real. Colonel Collins, heads turned, Kumarni de Surinam, Konhena Kimarnan. Conversations halted. Walker stopped 2 feet away, back straight as a parade ground. He raised his hand in a crisp, practiced salute. Sir, you don't know what this means. You saved our entire unit that day. I never got to say it, his voice caught, but he forced it steady. But we live because of you. Gasps broke from a few patrons nearby. The old man blinked, stunned. Walker, you made it, he murmured. The younger officers with Walker stood tall, recognizing instantly who the old man was, not just a stranger in a coat, but a symbol in flesh and bone. From the hallway beyond the lobby, the bank manager emerged, clipboard in hand. He paused mid-step, seeing the unexpected scene, a decorated general saluting a seated elder. What's going on here? A customer whispered. He's a Medal of Honor recipient. That man saved soldiers in '71. The manager's eyes snapped to the old man and then to the framed photograph on the wall. His lips parted. I, I, I know you, the manager said slowly. I received a scholarship from the Medal Honor Fund years ago. The old man simply nodded. You founded that fund. He nodded again. Quiet, steady. In that moment, the entire lobby felt at the weight of history, the reversal of shame into honor. Brenda, the teller, stood frozen, color drained from her face. Alan Walker turned toward the crowd. I was just a kid in a canyon, lost and afraid. He gave me back more than my courage. He gave me my life. Silence fell over the room, not awkward, but reverent. Even the beeping from a card reader in the corner seemed to hush. And then, without command, people began to rise. One by one, quietly, standing. For him, the old man looked around slowly, faces once indifferent now filled with quiet awe. No one spoke. Even the children stopped fidgeting. The bank manager stepped closer, his clipboard now hanging useless at his side. Sir, he said, his voice shaking slightly, if I had known. You weren't supposed to, the old man replied, calm and measured. The manager blinked. We will correct this. Immediately, Alan Walker turned to the staff behind the counter. This man didn't ask for special treatment, but he deserves better than silence. The teller, Brenda, looked down, her hands trembling. A woman in line whispered to her daughter, remember his face. That's what a real hero looks like. And through it all, the old man didn't move, didn't cry, didn't bow. He simply nodded, like a soldier acknowledging a salute. At last, the room held its breath not out of duty, but from something sacred. And for the first time in years, the old man felt the silence shift. Not to erase him, but to recognize him. He didn't feel like a relic. He felt remembered. Every gaze that met his was an unspoken salute. Every stillness, a standing ovation in disguise. He didn't smile, but his eyes, once dulled by dismissal, now held light. He wasn't a ghost in line anymore. He was a name worth standing for. Something in the air shifted like the hush after a final note played. The spell broke. Brenda stepped out from behind the counter as if jolted awake, her polished shoes skidding slightly on the floor. Her voice shook, her face pale. Sir, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize. Siriche de versum. She tried to say more, but the words tangled into each other. Her hands fluttered uselessly at her sides. The manager appeared at her elbow, his tone curt but not unkind. Brenda, thank you. You'll take leave starting today. Then, turning to the old man, his voice lowered with respect. Sir, may I escort you to our private suite? The old man hesitated for only a breath, then stood. The room parted for him without a word. Inside the VIP suite, the lighting was soft, the chairs plush, but no one noticed. The manager oversaw every detail of the transaction personally. No mistakes, no hesitation. Alan Walker stood beside him. Colonel, if it's all right, may I take a photo with you? Just one. For memory. He lifted his phone, hands trembling just enough to betray what words couldn't. The old man nodded. Click. Walker blinked fast. You covered me with your own body. I thought I'd lost you. I never got to say thank you. The old man didn't smile, but his hand landed firmly on Walker's shoulder. Living right was always the best thanks. More officers filed in quietly. One by one, they approached not to speak, but to offer a look, a nod, a clasp of the hand. None of it rehearsed. All of it sacred. They gathered around him like sentries. No formation, just men who remembered. Walker's voice dropped. You remember the ridge? The old man looked at him, not past, but through. I remember every face we brought home, and everyone we couldn't. Silence settled. Heavy, but not burdensome. In that small room, war and peace shook hands. Not with ceremony, but with presence. No one moved, because some debts are paid not in dollars or medals, but in moments like this. Moments that remember you back. Weeks later, a new plaque appeared near the front entrance of the bank. Beneath an American flag, carved in bronze, were the words, in honor of those who served not just with valor, but with humility. This branch is committed to remembering them. Above the teller counters, a new policy sign read, Veterans First. Always. The bank instituted a protocol. Any veteran carrying a Medal of Honor, Silver Star, or Purple Heart would be fast-tracked. No questions, no delays. Staff underwent empathy and recognition training. Every November, a small ceremony would be held at this very branch. Not grand, not loud, just enough. The manager now greeted every uniformed visitor personally. And somewhere deep in the security footage archives, there was one clip they all watched quietly every year, the moment when the lobby had stood still. Henry never returned to the branch. He didn't need to. But one morning, long after the news stories faded, the first employee to arrive found something resting neatly at the foot of the memorial plaque. A tightly folded American flag. Crispirum, Sursturmaffermersursum, clean no one universe sephern. Edges zigzag. No note. The Ham, no name, just a memory. And the weight of it lingered long after the doors opened for the day. Brenda never returned to that counter. She asked for reassignment to back office work and started attending every November ceremony in silence, always placing a white rose near the flag. The photo taken that day, Walker and the old man standing side by side, was framed and mounted beside the plaque. Underneath it read, "Some debts cannot be repaid, only remembered." Customers still pause there sometimes, hand over heart, uncertain why they suddenly feel solemn. The bank staff grew quiet on days when veterans walked in, not from fear, but respect. And in the quietest moments when the lobby was still, when the wind outside flapped the flag above the door, some claimed they felt something else linger, as if a presence never fully left, or maybe had finally come home. Heroes don't always wear armor. Sometimes they sit quietly in bank lobbies, with faded jackets, tired hands, and eyes that have seen too much. They don't speak loudly. They don't ask for attention, but their presence carries something unshakable, a silence that simply asks to be remembered. In a world that never stops rushing forward, there are moments that make us pause, not because someone told us to, but because something in us remembers what respect feels like. Dignity doesn't shout. It stands quietly, and somehow we all listen. Maybe you've seen someone like him, a man alone at a diner, a folded flag on a mantle, a name on a wall. Maybe their story isn't yours, but it could have been. Yes, sir. So if this story touched something in you, don't let it pass. Share it. For the ones who never asked for thanks, but earned it every day. Leave a comment for someone who served. Like this if you believe respect doesn't come from rank or recognition, but from remembering. Subscribe to help carry voices like his a little further. Because sometimes, a quiet story retold with care is the loudest salute we can give. We can't rewrite the past, but together we can choose to honor it. At Unveiled Wealth, we believe stories like these shouldn't disappear. They deserve to be heard, remembered, and passed on. If you believe that too, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, not just to follow us, but to help carry these stories forward. For every unsung hero, every folded flag, every quiet act of courage, your voice matters. Thank you for listening to this story. We'll see you in the next one.